morning, beloved. Peace be with you. Today we are celebrating All Souls Day. Yesterday was All Saints Day, and it was so close to Sunday that the church, usually it's a day of obligation, but they waived it. So if you didn't go to Mass on All Saints Day yesterday, don't come to confession for that. You're okay, huh? That will save me about 10 people right there, probably, huh? But it's good just first to maybe just kind of set the distinguishing mark between yesterday and today. All Saints Day, All Souls Day. All Saints Day is celebrated for all the saints who are everyone who's in heaven is called the saint, huh? So everyone who's in heaven, yesterday was their feast day. Actually, specifically, it's all the non-canonized saints, right? Because the canonized saints, they have their feast day that we celebrate throughout the year. But yesterday was for anybody who's not canonized but is in heaven, unknown to us. That was their day, huh? So we're celebrating yesterday was their day. There's a lot of people in heaven who would probably be surprised, huh? We might be surprised if we make it there sometimes, huh? Today is All Souls Day, so all the souls of the faithful departed, those who have died but are not yet in heaven. They're not in hell, and they're not in heaven. Where are they? Purgatory, that dreaded word, huh? Anybody know what that word means? It means the fires of mini hell. Just kidding. That's actually what I was taught when I became Catholic. I was like, that doesn't sound very good. It's like a mini hell. Well, why do I want to go there? You know. We're gonna clear that up today, huh? The word basically just means purification, purifying, healing, completion. You won't find that word in the Bible. Just like you won't find Trinity in the Bible, all those things, huh? But you'll find the teaching of purgatory is in the Bible. Some places very explicit, some places it's implicit. We're going to just do some basic teaching today on purgatory. So hopefully we can get rid of any fears, clear up any misunderstandings. And I'll just give you some examples of understanding the purgatory, the process of purifying that have been helpful for me. So, maybe it's first good just to say, when we die, that means we don't automatically go to heaven, right? We might have to just realize maybe our goal, our purpose. The first purpose that God has for us is that He would give us the power, which is His Spirit, to become His children. And then once we become His children, then He wants us to grow up and to mature. And so we see a lot of teachings, especially of Jesus throughout the Gospels, about this growing or maturing process. He calls it really discipleship, training. He says when every disciple is fully trained, they'll be just like the master. Paul, when he's teaching in Ephesians chapter 4, he says that the whole purpose of all these ministries in the church and of all the leaders and those who God has given special gifts to either be apostles or prophets or preachers or teachers, the whole purpose of them getting those gifts is to teach the other people and raise them up so they grow up into, he says, the full, mature stature or measure of Jesus Christ. So in short, you and I are to be supposed to grow up and mature and become Christ and nothing less. That's our measuring standard. That's what Paul is saying in Ephesians 4. We are to measure ourselves to Christ. You might have died a nice person, but if you didn't die and you were Christ, you were loving like Christ, you forgiving like Christ, then you weren't there yet. You still had some growing up to do. Does that make sense? You've got to understand that process. We should be able to understand it, just recognize that on a purely human, natural, biological level. People don't just get married and have babies and then that's it. They want those babies to grow up, right? And mature. And as they grow up and mature, they need to take on more responsibility and start being responsible for things in the house and for chores and then for themselves. And, oh, isn't it a funny day, parents, right? When the kids, they finally get their first job and then they get their first paycheck and they see how much taxes took out, right? And they're shocked, and we say, yeah, welcome to the club, brother, Now, how's it feel to be an adult? You like being an adult now? You work your butt off and the government takes half of it, We want them to grow up, huh? And as they grow up, and we're still growing up, and it's one thing to get married and become a husband or wife, and then another thing if God gifts you to become a father or a mother, and then you keep growing up even as your kids are growing up, and one day they might get married, and oh my gosh, if they have children, then you keep growing up because you become a grandparent now. This is this huge lifelong growing up process, huh? That's just on the natural level. Why wouldn't it also be the same on the supernatural level as children of God? It is. And we are to grow up and become Christ. The scriptures are not shy about that at all. So, purgatory is actually a very logical thing. If you and I die, everyone in heaven is like Christ. And if you and I die, and we haven't yet hit the measure of where we are Christ, we don't get to go to heaven. So thank God for purgatory. Some kind of, it's best not described as a place, but a process where our growing up can complete. One of the easiest ways to recognize our growing up is just to maybe look at two things in our life: how we love and receive love, how we give love and receive love, and how we forgive. Everyone in heaven has forgiven everyone in their life completely. Boy, that's got to feel good, huh? Everyone in heaven receives love fully and completely, and loves fully and completely like Christ loves. This is what God's love looks like. It's a total gift of self, and in heaven you just imagine a whole community of people where everyone is just totally giving themselves to each other. It's just this reciprocal exchange of life and love, what communion is supposed to be. The biggest part of that is that to love like this, our will has to be this. Our love has to be just like Christ's. We have to will what Jesus wills, will what God wills. I choose what God chooses. I choose what God chooses. It's all about the conformity of our will. This is why when we die, if we're not like Christ, if our will isn't perfectly like God's will in every way, then nothing can magically happen to change us and throw us in heaven really quick. Because it's our will, it's our free will. God can't just change our free will. He needs us to change it, us to choose it. So purgatory, that process, is it's a very logical thing to come up with. And we do find evidence in scriptures, but it's just very logical. If I die and I'm not like Christ, I need Christ to do something to make me like him. I was talking to somebody one time who wasn't Catholic, and they said, I don't believe in that purgatory thing. I said, okay, but you You believe that everyone in heaven is perfect, right? Yeah, they're just like Jesus. Yep, they love like Jesus. They act like Jesus. They do everything that Jesus does. They're just like Jesus. They're pure love as God is pure love. I said, well, if you died right now, are you pure love like God is pure love? Are you just like Christ? If you died right now, are you like Christ? Well, no. So you wouldn't go to heaven when you die. Well, yeah, I would. I said, but you're not like Christ. Well, God will have to do something. I said, that's right. If we call that something purgatory, he will have to do something. A very non-theological description of the purgatory process you could catch from near-death experiences. There's near-death experiences happen all over the world, no matter what culture you are, no matter what age you are, no matter what religion you are. All through a history of humanity, there's been near-death experiences where people, they die, they come back, they tell you what they saw or experienced. Many of them, they usually describe something like, I died, I saw this stuff all around, I was leaving whatever, and I saw this light. And at the end of a tunnel, this light, and I was not doing anything, but I was being moved towards the light. And then at some point, I got to the light. Well, that process of seeing the light and moving towards the light and then being in the light, that moving process is purgatory. Whatever had to happen for that person to be able to get to the light and be in the light, that's what we call purgatory. Purification, cleansing. I like to actually call it a final healing process. Because the goal is to love like Christ and to be loved fully, to receive love fully like Jesus does. How many of us, though, we go through life and there's a lot of bumps and bruises we get, huh? And some of them we cause. Others, people, they hurt us. I don't know about you, but when somebody hurts me, my first instinctual reaction is self-survival mode. And I will either hurt back because I was hurt, or I will begin to throw up a wall so I'll never get hurt again. And every time that person or different people do something like that hurt me, I'll just throw up wall, and you won't even get close to me. And I'm really building up this callousness or hardness around my heart because I'm trying to protect my heart. The danger is then I don't end up receiving even authentic love because I'm afraid of more hurt. And also the danger is sometimes I don't reach out to love because I don't want to open up in case I get hurt. Those are wounds that we all experience on some level. The only way they're healed is by love. I like one of St. Catherine of Genoa's, the place where they make salami. One of her descriptions of purgatory, she had a prayerful experience of it and tried to just find words to describe it. And she said she falls short, but one of the best ways she can describe it is the soul is there, completely wrapped and enveloped in God's love. And God is just loving on that soul. And the soul sees clearly that it's God's love and is receiving it. But also sees this perfect, pure, unconditional love and is experiencing it, but also sees the lack of love in return that the soul is giving to God because of the different wounds. I call them wounds. She calls them the rust of sin, the stain of sin that has to be washed away by God's love. She says, in that process, God just loves on the soul until it washes away all the stain, all the rust of sin, and it's pure. I say God is loving on that soul until all the wounds are healed. All the wounds of love are healed, and now that soul is love and is ready for heaven. Maybe another way to help understand part of the process. It's not a perfect example, but and I've never experienced it, but I heard stories of people who will like adopt a rescue animal, maybe a rescue dog, and they know this dog has been abused, and they see the trauma, and you hear the stories. They maybe you've experienced it, some of you. They love on this dog over and over and over, and just wait for the dog to open up. And they wait for the dog, they try to create a safe space, and they love on the dog and wait until the dog will slowly let them touch, pet, eat food out of their mouth, out of their hand maybe, eventually play, cuddle, rest in their lap. But it's a very long process. They're loving on the dog, and the dog slowly has to get healed from that trauma, where the trauma goes away and the love takes its place. I think that is something like purgatory. But we have different hurts and wounds and even trauma that we experience in life, and in that purgatory, God is just loving on us until eventually the trauma, we're opened up and the trauma is removed and replaced by his love. All the saints say purgatory is wonderful. Better than earth. Because you're just wrapped up in God's love. But they also say that process of healing, you can't control how fast that happens in purgatory. But actually they say we can control and experience that process now. Because now we can keep choosing to love, to risk, to love, or to be loved. We can choose. We can choose to forgive, to let go, to grow. In purgatory, they say there's no choice. You're there. Your choice is to be with God, and so you're there, but you're not ready for heaven. It's like if you were going to get married, and somehow you got a stain on your wedding dress. You're not going to go to the wedding. You're going to go clean that dress first, right? And then you're going to go to the wedding. So it's like when we die, if we see God's love clearly, and we see our own love and sometimes lack of love, maybe some stains of sin, we say, oh, I'm not ready for heaven. Where can I go? You go off to purgatory to get cleansed so that you're ready for the wedding feast and the banquet of heaven. As I was saying, the saints say we can kind of experience and even speed up that process here and now. And it comes down again to the will of God, choosing the will of God with our own will, so that our will is what he wills. This is what that was his attitude. This is what he says in the gospel today. He says, I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. Is that our attitude? Everywhere we go, we're going there to do the will of the one who sent me. Do we realize that every one of us is sent? When Jesus, in the Gospel of John, after he rose from the dead, he appeared to his disciples, not just to the apostles, but to the disciples, and he said to them, as in the same way the Father sent me, now I am sending all of you. And we call this worship service the Mass, which in Latin means the sending. And at the very end of Mass, when I say go, the Mass is ended. Actually, literally, I could say, go, you and I are sent. The love and communion with God we have received, we are now sent to go and give. This is the will of my Father, the one who sends him, that everyone would see the Son and believe in him and have everlasting life. And I shall raise him on the last day. That's God's will. God wants everyone saved. But he needs you and I to go out and find the one. Remember the story of the 99 and then the one lost sheep? When you and I we're sent to go find the one. Who is the one for today? Who needs to hear about God's love? Who needs to hear that God loves them, forgives them, wants them, chooses them? That's up to you and I. When we leave here, we're going to go out all these different places. And in all those different places, there is probably a one out there that just needs to hear or experience God's love coming through his children. The only way to grow our love so it becomes like this is to exercise it out there in the day-to-day interactions with the one. The more we do that, the more we grow in love, and the faster you go to heaven after you die. However much, this is actually good news. However much you and I have not grown in love, but we want to, and even if when we die, God will just love on us until we're there. Not a bad thing, huh? Not a bad deal. You just have to want to. And just be doing the best you can. The only people that are in hell are those who refuse to try. Those who say, no, I'm not going to do that. But those who say, I'll try, those are the ones that are on the, when we die, it's just, you die in two directions, you know. Your will is in two directions. It's either towards God or away from God. Those who say no to God go away. Those who say, I want it, you know, to some degree or another, if you want God, you're going to go towards him. Anybody ready for purgatory? All right. So who is the one today that you will find and share God's love with? Or who is the one in your life maybe that you need to love by choosing to forgive them on a deeper level?